Good morning, Asbury. I know that this has been a hard week for many people. A record number of people voted in our presidential election on Tuesday, either in person or through early voting or mail-in ballots. And there are still many days, what feels like a lot of days later, even though it's only been a few days, there are so many unknowns before us. This is a week where many of us have been left wondering what's next and what do we do now? I know for me, it's been both eye-opening and, quite frankly, it's been discouraging to realize how divided our nation really is. Maybe like me, you've been easily distracted this week. Maybe you've been watching the voting updates really regularly, or maybe you've been doing everything but watching the updates, trying to distract yourself from it all. Maybe, like me, you have felt a heaviness, a weight permeating everything. Maybe, like me, you've been wondering how we will move forward as a nation when we are this deeply divided. Maybe, like me, there have been times when you have felt helpless watching everything unfold, feeling like if you voted, then you have done absolutely everything you could, and now all that is left is to watch and to wait and to let things unfold. Voting is such an important process in our nation. It's one of the foundational, fundamental parts of our democracy. And because it's such an important thing, we sometimes treat it as if it is the end of our part in this process. That we have researched all of the candidates and the issues, we've done our thinking and our wrestling and our discerning, probably even praying over how to vote. And then we fill out our ballots and we turn it in, and then we just sort of wait and see what happens. But this week, I've been doing a lot of thinking about how when I was younger, I took some martial arts. And my instructor in this particular form of martial arts had this saying: every time that somebody earned the rank of black belt, which is a process that took a really long time, it took many years of work, no matter your age. You had to show up over and over again. It took an incredible amount of work and discipline to earn the rank of black belt. And anytime somebody earned that rank, my instructor would say the same thing. He would always say, "Congratulations, you have just begun. Congratulations, you've just begun." And that seems weird to many people because obviously this person had already spent a lot of time and discipline in this effort. But what my instructor was trying to convey to all of us, both those who had earned the rank of black belt and those who were at various points along that journey, what he was trying to convey is that what many people treat as the end is really just the launching point. He was trying to let us know that we had learned the basics, but that there was still so much more to learn and to grow and to do. That this moment that so many people have thought of and treated as a finish line is really just the start line. And I've been thinking about that this week and how we're called to vote, and that there's a lot of discipline and work that goes into voting as we discern who the right candidate is and all of that sort of stuff. But that the act of filling out our ballots and making our choices and our voices known and heard is really just the beginning. That it's really just the beginning of pressing on toward the work that God has called us to do. It is a part, and it's a really important part, but it's only a part, not the whole thing. It's like in Philippians 3, where Paul says, "By no means do I count myself an expert in all of this, but I've got my eye on the goal where God is beckoning us onward to Jesus. I'm off and running, and I'm not turning back. So let's keep focused on that goal, those of us who want everything God has for us. If any of you have something else in mind, something less than total commitment, God will clear your blurred vision. You'll see it yet. Now that we're on the right track, let's stay on it. And in other more, that's the Message translation, but in other more traditional translations of that passage, Paul talks about pressing on toward the goal. And I think as Christians, that's what we do now. Now that we've voted, for those of us who have voted, the next step is to continue to press on towards the goal of loving the way that God has called us to love, regardless of the outcome of this vote. But to recognize that we are being asked to continue to do the work that God has called us to do. It means that regardless of what happens in the vote, that we're going to be called to be patient and gentle with our families. It means that we're continued to be called to do the work of clothing bodies and feeding the hungry. It means proclaiming that people of color are loved and cherished every bit as much by God as white people are. And it means all of the things that God has invited us to do, that we're asked to do the hard work of living out our Christian lives and beliefs and the love of God where the rubber meets the road every day in our lives. Paul continues by saying, "Stick with me, friends. Keep track of those you see running this same course, headed for this same goal. There are many out there taking other paths, choosing other goals, and trying to get you to go along with them." And I read that passage and I just think, that's it. That's what we're called to do, that as Christians, we're called to press on alongside the people who are pressing on toward the same goal as us, the goal of making God's kingdom known here on earth as it is in heaven, and to not lose focus of what God is calling us to do in this moment and in this time. The world needs God's people to show up and to get to work building the beloved community, regardless of the outcome of this election. The world needs God's people to show up and to get to work now more than ever, to be the embodiment of God's love. So keep pressing on, Asbury. This community has an incredible amount of love to give and love to share. Our elected officials undoubtedly have a lot of power, but they don't have the ultimate power. That is God's alone. And God's Spirit is in you. It's there, inside of you, right now, at this very moment. And right now, I really believe that the Spirit is leaning in and whispering, "Congratulations, you've just begun."